Hi guys, welcome back. This is Walessa from A Life Refurbished. And this week we're gonna be refinishing my dining set. We're gonna be stripping the old varnish, painting, staining. It's gonna be fun. So stick around for today's makeover. We have owned the dining table and the bench that came with it for a little bit over 8 years. It came with a set of chairs that we ended up getting rid of some time ago because they came with sitting cushions that were made with fabric. When we finally found enough chairs that would match the current style, we said, this is it. Is this week or never? Perhaps I sound a little dramatic, but when your kid is in sports and you always have some kind of sport event going on, it's hard to find that 1 week that you can set apart to tackle such a large project. And just so you know, we have been waiting 3 years to get that week off. So I'm beyond excited that we get to do this. Even though we purchased a table from a big box store, it is a quality one, and that's why it's worth refinishing it. It's also pretty heavy, so we decided to unscrew the base and take the tabletop outside. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be sanding or stripping the tabletop. So at this point, the wisest thing to do is just to test the stripper on a smaller area to see how well it lifts the old finish. I was as unsure as Luna looks here while we take the table apart. I tested Green Easy on a smaller area, applying a generous amount and spreading it with a brush. I covered it up with plastic, and after 40 minutes or so I came back and it did such a good job that I opted to strip the entire tabletop. While Green Easy doesn't contain methylene chloride, it's still recommended that you wear gloves and safety goggles to protect your skin and eyes during application and removal of the product. The time it takes for the product to work can vary depending on how many coats of paint you have or the thickness of the finish, temperature. Generally, it takes between 15 to 45 minutes for most coatings to soften. I actually waited 40 minutes for this tabletop. To prolong the working time, I'm covering the surface with a plastic wrap. While the furniture stripper works, I wanted to share the different experience between sanding versus stripping a similar surface with you. That's why I'm sanding the top of the bench. And in case you haven't noticed, my husband is working hard at sanding those chairs. Folks, there's nothing easy about it, especially spindle back chairs. But he was committed to stay in the seats. He's such a good sport. So this is a good report. After 40 minutes, I came back to check and the stripper did a beautiful job removing the old finish. While dining sets can be daunting to tackle, in this instance, we're transforming 7 pieces of furniture all for this one video. Out of the 7 pieces, the removal of the tabletop finish, which was stripped and not sanded, went the smoothest, and I'm gonna share with you in a minute why. We're gonna remove any residue from the previous finish by spraying some of this finishing cleaner, and then I like scrubbing the residue using a 000 steel wool. If you ever strip a piece of furniture before, you know how rewarding it is to see the wood grain. I'm just having another happy dance. So far, my day is going fantastic, but I don't know about my husband's. So let's go check and see how far into the chairs he's at. His day is definitely moving a lot slower than mine. It takes a lot of time to remove the finish around every single spindle, you guys. Thank goodness we have these carbide scrapers because they save us a ton of time. The refinisher in me couldn't help but recommend that he use the sander in a lot of the spaces that he's sanding by hand. but we can all be a little stubborn, and so can he. I guess I'm just walking away and letting him do it his own way. Besides, I still have a lot of sanding to do on my own. For that first sanding round, I'm using 150 grit, then I'm gonna follow that by 120 grit. From there, we're gonna start the cleaning process in preparation for that pre-stain. And just like that, little by little, the husband and I started making progress on this set. Let's talk about the top of the bench that was sanded instead of stripped like the tabletop. Even though the surfaces are identical, it took a lot longer to remove the old stain from the top of the bench. As you see here, I'm removing the finish that the sander didn't reach into with my carbide scraper, every nook and cranny at a time, versus the chemical stripper lifting the finish from the tabletop on its entirety. While both of the tops of the bench and the table are getting stained, both of the bases are getting painted, so I can't forget about sanding and prepping those as well. After I was done with those, I looked at the tabletop from the distance and realized that the skirt was visible, so I needed to go back and prep it because that's also gonna get painted. To clean the surface, I used a TSP alternate, and then I took the tabletop inside because we saw the weather forecast is about to get really hot outside, and I don't want the heat or humidity to affect the way the new finish cures. Do you know how at the beginning I said that we waited 3 years to have a week where we could tackle this? Unfortunately, it was the hottest week of the year, so I needed to make sure that the tabletop spent at least 24 hours inside so it would climatize. Once ready, you just saw me in the previous video doing a final wipe down using green MB mineral spirits. A couple hours later, I was ready to apply the wood conditioner here. Applying a wood conditioner or pre-stain helps so that the wood absorbs the stain more evenly. You'll want to wipe off the excess wood conditioner off right away. Allow it to penetrate for 30 minutes before staining. As usual, I'm working in sections, applying the wood conditioner on the first half of the table, then I'm moving on to the other half, applying the conditioner, wiping off, and I'm gonna wait 30 minutes. Meanwhile, my husband is getting ready to tackle the most challenging chairs, the armchairs. He's drilling through and removing the head plugs so that he can take off the screws. That way the armrests can be detached. While he was sanding the seat, we figured that if he could remove it completely, his sanding time would probably be cut down in half. And after removing the screws that were under these head plugs, he was able to detach it. I know that today's video is a little bit longer than usual, but I'm hoping that just like we learned something from every piece, that you will take something away too. Okay, I have to admit that at this point I'm feeling a little bit bad for my husband because he just seemed like my table and the bench project moved right along, and I just kept coming back to the garage to find him here, just sanding another small space. But he was getting there, and I just came out to help a little bit to put the chair back together. Then we saw that the screws were showing, and I did not like that rounded head plug that the chairs had before. I think the flat head ones are a lot more discreet looking, so we ended up adding those in. If you guys watched the bench makeover I did a couple videos back, I used these head plugs for that makeover as well, and we really love the results. Know that the same process that was followed onto the table and the bench to get them all clean before the pre-stain was done on all the chairs, and right now I'm just applying the pre-stain on the seat. Once done with all the pre-stain stuff, we're gonna start with the fun part, which is staining and painting. I'm getting ready my staining pad by wrapping it with tape to remove all the lint from it. And then I'm gonna deepen it into this color Simply White from Minwax. This is an oil-based penetrating stain. You guys know I work in sections, so once again I divided the tabletop in half, applied the stain to that first half and wipe off the excess right away, and then move to the other side. After that first coat, which is what I'm showing on the left side here, you can see it looks a lot more red in person. So I decided to apply a second coat. I waited 2 hours between the first and second application. Since I didn't see that much of a difference between the first and second application, I applied a third coat of this white stain, waiting 2 hours in between each coat. Keep in mind that the more coats of stain that you apply, the more tacky your surface is going to be. That is why I waited 4 hours before applying this fourth coat. And for the fourth coat, I added a splash of Simply White to Early American until it gave me this warm brown. This is gonna give me that warm neutral look that I'm going for. I'm paying close attention to make sure that the stain goes into all those intentional dings that were created by the factory to make it look more rustic, and also in every group. There is a huge difference between the oak wood on the seats of the chairs versus the tabletop. These seats are a lot more white already, so I only needed to apply one coat of the Simply White and a coat of the Early American stain without a splash of Simply White. While the tabletop needed 4 coats, these chairs only needed 2 coats. We're just trying to match the wood tones as much as possible. I want you to take a quick look at what's happening around the spindles when I'm staining. Do you notice how there is a little bit of residue of the oil stain? I'm sharing this with you because I want you to learn from more mistakes. That residue was left there. I didn't think it would make that much of a difference when I applied this water-based paint over it. Especially because I waited about 72 hours before I started applying the paint. But unfortunately, when that paint came in contact with that stained residue, the paint was not attaching in those areas, and we found ourselves scraping off the old finish on those areas again. Sanding them down to make sure that every single residue of that oil stain was removed, and try on this painting job again. And we succeeded, but at that time, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little discouraging. To prevent that from happening to you in the future, you could tape every spindle before applying the stain, or when you apply the stain, be extremely careful that there's absolutely no residue left on the spindle. When you're applying it, it just went in there. I should have taped that. That was a big oops with the chairs, but other than that, the rest went smooth. This large project took a good amount of space, both in the garage and inside the house. After the chairs dried for 72 hours, I top coated them with a water-based top coat. After I was done with that, I was like, oh my gosh, I still have to do the base of the bench and the skirt on the table. So I got painting. Once I was done applying all 3 coats of top coat on those chairs, we brought them inside so that we would have some free space to finally take care of the last piece of the puzzle, and that was the base of the table. My husband had a great idea to screw a couple pieces of scrap wood to the base. That way I could spray all 4 sides at once. Top coat the top of the table, I make sure that it was dust free by cleaning it with a tack cloth. Then I open this oil-based arm art seal from General Finishes. I poured a little bit into a cup. It's very important that you mix this product really well before you start pouring it over the surface. As you can see, I'm using a sock to spread the top coat. This is the easiest and fastest way I know how to use it. Make sure you don't over wipe, because otherwise you're gonna start noticing some bubbles, and when your product dries you're gonna be able to see them. So if you see a little imperfection, just let the product settle down, dry. You can always come back and cover it on the second coat. This is it. We're arriving to the finish line. Today I'm applying 3 coats of high performance top coat from General Finishes, waiting an hour in between each coat. The time has arrived. Check out our previous dark table, dark flooring and cabinets, and this bright finish has brightened our entire space. We absolutely love it. Yes, it's a lot of work, but we know it's worth it. Let me know what you think of today's makeover in the comments. And as always, I will see you guys next time.